Laura, my love, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, I'm stoked. We were just reminiscing. I always feel like we should be recording before we actually start the recording because we were just talking about the journey of the last 3 years. I mean, we first worked together 3 years ago and watching the evolution of your business, your life, your babies that you've had, everything. It's just insane to see how much has changed and shifted.
It is wild how much, I talk about myself, but a person or anyone can achieve in 3 years. It's kind of mind blowing and it excites me for like, what is the next 5 years going to look like?
Yes.
So
And
yeah,
it goes
thank you
so
for saying
fast
that.
too, right? Like 3 years is so, it'll be here tomorrow.
I think when you're in it, it feels like a really long time. But then when you look back, you're like, wow, it just happened. And here
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah, and here we are. All right, let's do just a quick breakdown because you have a really neat and very unique business. You sort of have two
Yeah.
businesses side by side that potentially could feed each other, and they're very complementary to one another. But you have an agency side of your business and you have a coaching side of your business. So can you just
Yeah.
like break down the two things that you have going on?
Yeah, totally. So my core belief is that you and your business deserve to be seen. And so while the businesses work side by side, they do ladder up to that core belief, which is really helping women and mothers and get their businesses seen online. And so we do that through the agency, which is a boutique social media marketing agency where we're full service, organic social media content creation and strategy, helping with lead generation and things like that for people that are ready to offload that side of their business. They don't want to be doing that themselves anymore. We have an incredible team that makes that happen. And then the coaching side of my business, I'm helping a lot of entrepreneurial mothers build their businesses online. I primarily serve service providers, people in the wellness space. I don't do a lot with other business coaches or things like that, but it's really just women that have a passion that are incredible at the things that they do, but just really need some help with the business side of things and stepping into their inner CEO along the way.
Which one did you start first?
The coaching business. So when
Mm,
I started, well, when I had my son, who's now 3 in 2020, which is, some background story for sure. I had just closed my brick and mortar gym and I had a 3-month-old baby. And so I knew that I had to do the thing that was going to be easiest for me. And I had a corporate marketing background. So it's like, I'm going to start teaching people how to use social media for their business because it's something that I knew really well. It's what I had done in corporate for 8 years before. It's what I had done for 5 years of running my corporate or running my gym, sorry. And so that's where I started. And then it started people asking me as they started their business started to grow through the work we were doing together. They started asking me if we would take it on for them. So the coaching came first and then the agency came second.
got it. And with your agency, how full service is it? Are they actually creating content, writing copy? Are they in the DMs for your clients?
Yeah, all of the above. So it really depends. I mean, I like to have a collaborative approach. The one thing I always say to my clients is like, I can't be your face. So you still have to show up in your stories, still be there for your brand. But certainly we're doing all the strategy. We create the videos, we do the copy, we can be in the DMs. It really just depends on the business. But there is a collaborative piece that always has to be there because for every small business, I can't be your face or your team's face. Like people still need to show up and be present there too. So it
Yeah.
is collaborative, but we call it full service.
Yeah. Based on your experience and expertise, how important do you think it is for someone to actually show their face to be part of the brand or be the brand? And like, what are the kind of two sides to that, right? Because there's like devil's advocate of when you are the face, what happens? And then if you're not the face, what could happen?
Yeah, I think people buy from people, right? And I think regardless of what it is that we do, we're all in the relationships business. And when you're on social media and you choose to be faceless with your brand, it's really hard for a person to actually feel any sort of connection to you, right? And regardless of what it is that you're selling, whether it's product or service, people want to feel connected to you and your story. And if all you're posting are, graphics and still images of your face, it's just really hard to build that connection. I do think that if you're a founder, regardless, like it is your responsibility to build a personal brand and to be present. Because if you don't have that ability to make that connection, you're probably not going to sell as much.
Yeah. There's so many accounts. I agree with you. And I'm also thinking of like the other side of it. There's so many accounts that initially blew up without a founder's face. And I'll give a couple
Yeah.
examples. I'm sure you're aware of these accounts too, but the holistic psychologist, Nicola Perla, like no one even knew
Yeah.
who she was for, I feel like years. And Boss Babe with Natalie Ellis and Danielle Canty back in the day, like it was just quote tiles and like inspirational things that would get reshared a lot, which then grew the account a lot. And they were really good at growing community as well as audience. But for me, they didn't have a face to the brand for so long. How do you feel like I'm just as a conversation? I'm like, I don't even know. How
Yeah.
does that work? Right. Cause it's like, it goes against what we both feel if people buy from people.
Yeah, I think it's changed too, though, because now
Yeah.
people know who Natalie Ellis is and they know who Nicola Perla is, right? And so I think that maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you could have got away with it.
Mm.
And now the online space it's so saturated. And that doesn't mean that there's not room for people. There is, but like who you are and your personal story, like that is so important. I think if you were to look at, I do follow Nicola Perla, a holistic psychologist now, and she's doing so much more content with her in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So many more reels. I know she does carousels and tiles, but if you were to like scroll down a couple of years, yeah, you never saw her face.
Yeah.
But now that she's doing that, she's got her books, she's really leaning into who it is that she is. So I do think that there has been a shift.
Yeah.
Even when I think back to 3 years ago when you and I first connected, you could do that, right? It could, yes, showing up on your stories was something that you really should do, but you could probably get away with not doing it. But I do think like the expectations of people have changed so much, and um, what is normal, which is obviously in varying degrees when we talk about
Mhm.
normal. I just think that the consumer expectation has changed, and those people that were that successful that way have changed how they show up too.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I think just also, like you were saying, consumer behavior, the way that we're showing up, the way that we're consuming, the way that we're buying, our attention span. I mean, this is constantly evolving and changing. And this is
Yeah.
one of the things that we get to do as entrepreneurs
Mhm.
is sort of keep up with it or help innovate what the next thing is, as opposed to resist it, which I know a lot of us, myself included, sometimes feel that way. It's like when Reels came out, everyone, oh my God, I don't want to make videos now. It's like you
Yeah.
can either play the game or you can sort of get left behind. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious if you kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, and I love that you called it a game because I think that it is, right? And
Yes.
I think it's so easy to get so caught up in this, like, what will other people think of me? Or like, oh, I don't want to shoot video. But it's like at the end of the day, this is a game, and everything that you do on social media, yes, we want to be authentic and yes, we want to be vulnerable, but it is calculated, right? Everything
Mhm.
is calculated and it is with intention, or at least it should be done with intention. And you're either going to like get on board or you're going to get left behind. And so, we all have so many stories, and this is a lot of the work that I do in my coaching business, so many stories about why we can't do something, right? Or why we couldn't, or why that wouldn't be for us, or it's not aligned, however you want to talk about it. But I think at the end of the day, like you either need to get on board, find a way for you to innovate, and or get left behind. And, when I think about reels, for example, it's a great example. Like I'm not a person that dances in reels. I can't dance. Nobody wants to see me dance. And so I think people think about reels, like, oh, like I don't want to dance. Well, I don't dance, but I still make reels and I still do
Sure.
that consistently. Right. And so how can you take what's happening and make it for you rather than just dismiss it as something that you wouldn't do?
Yeah. Well, I'm obsessed with tactical, tangible, how to 5 steps, 7 ways. So, can you give us a
Yeah.
couple clear examples of, as a busy mom of two running essentially two different businesses, how are you not finding, but creating time to make reels that work for you, that it's not dancing, right? Like, what are some
Yeah.
examples of things that you could do that would feel maybe easier or
Yeah, I think
faster?
reels they've never been easier to make.
Mm,
I'm a person that loves to talk to camera, so talking to camera is easy for me. But the thing that is you're seeing all over the place right now are these B-roll style reels where people are just filming things that are going on in their life and sometimes shooting, setting up a camera while they're making coffee or whatever it may be, and then putting text copy over top of it. I think the other day I was putting muffins. I had made muffins with my kids that day and I was putting them in a tin. And I was like, well, I might as well film this and just put text over top because it really never has been easier. And as you're going through your day to day life, as you're seeing things and doing things, taking 30 seconds to set up a camera and filming a little bit of B roll, which for anyone that's not familiar with the term B roll, it's essentially just footage of things that would be like background footage. This wouldn't be
mhm.
direct to camera. And that's considered background footage, and putting text over top. I think for me, that's the easiest way to
Yeah.
do it. Um, but the
Do
other
you,
thing that I find really simple too is like thinking about the rule of three whenever you're creating content. So if you have an idea, right, something that you want to create a post about, whether it's like 5 ways to do this, seven things for this, whatever the idea is, to think about creating that same idea 3 ways. So doing a video, talking to camera, doing it with a trending sound, and doing it with B-roll are all 3 ways that you can make one idea into 3 different reels.
Yeah, and that's 3 different reels. You can also then take the same idea, do a hard post with the caption. You could do a carousel with the caption. So like now you
Yeah.
have 5, 6 posts out of just one reel. I'm sorry, one idea.
Yeah.
So really easy way to not even repurpose content, but like stretch content.
Yeah.
You know?
I think repetition is good. We forget that, right? We always think, oh, we need to say different things all the time. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Repetition is important.
I've
People need
seen
to
you
know
say
what
that
it
a
is.
lot. Yeah. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of your
See, there you
content, you're
go.
also,
Good.
it's also, well, yeah. And you give permission for people to repurpose, and you say, you posted something 90 days ago. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody remembers. You can post it again, especially if it's like not good as in you're valuable and worthy, but if it's good as in it is impactful for your ideal client. If this is something that's
Yeah.
going to move the needle for them or get them one step closer or be an aha moment for them, and this is in their words with the right messaging, with the right copy, say it again. And
Yeah.
not to feel bad about it, right? How do you navigate when if a client, I'm assuming, has said to you, I'm bored, I feel like I'm saying the same thing all the time, it's not creative, or it's, what if people are judging me? Like, I'm more dynamic, I have multi-dimensional levels, like I can't just keep saying the same thing all the time.
Yeah. I think for me, usually when we feel that way, it's because we're starting to consume too much. And this is
Mm.
what happens to me, right? As I'm consuming so much information that I'm getting away from the things that I really believe. And usually that takes, it's actually funny. This is the reel that I have to go out today, is to take some space away from my social media, like walk away, go outside, put your phone down, and really tap into the things that are important. And to remember that, you know, your creativity and your voice needs to be independent of other people's thoughts and ideas, and being able to create that separation is important, but also that as a business owner, right? Social media is a tool in your business. And so you may feel bored, but if it is effective, then let's go find some other creative outlets for you. Because
Yes.
if your social media is being effective, then why are we recreating the wheel? We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
It may mean that you just need a different creative outlet. And, when I think about things that resonate, I'm about to go into launching my mastermind again. And just yesterday, I went through all of my content from the last time that I ran my mastermind to pull out, what was most effective, where did I see the conversion, and I'm going to recreate much of that content, knowing that I'm going to be heading into another launch. I only do it every 6 months. And if
Right.
somebody remembers what I posted 6 months ago, like, that's fantastic. But most people are not going to do that. And so for me, like, there is a cyclical nature of my business, but at the end of the day, like, social media is a business tool for me. It's not really a creative outlet. I have other creative outlets that I tap into.
Yeah. And this is something that we talk about all the time in our company and on the podcast and the show, just the whole idea of your business being a machine, and there's different departments of the machine, right? There's different gears, and I don't know anything about machines, but timing belts and this, that, and the other. And it's like the engine that makes it go. And so when we're so focused on social media being everything, thinking that having an Instagram account means I'm a business owner and I have to put all my focus here, it's like, no, it's a marketing tool. It's one type of
Yeah.
marketing tool inside of your marketing department. And it isn't there to ignite your passions. It isn't there to entertain you. And that's what my mentor says. Your business is not meant to entertain you. Get a hobby,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, it could be a little bit jarring when you hear that, but that's the truth. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about this echo chamber, because it's really easy to get caught up. You said before, it's really saturated, right? And we know the industry's saturated, which I believe causes innovation. And it's just your
Mhm.
job to out sophisticate the saturation. So no big deal. There's no big deal. There's like 8 billion people on the planet. Not a big deal. However, whether you're consuming a lot or you're not consuming a lot, there is an echo chamber that happens where we do start to sound like each other. We're all regurgitating like what we've learned in other books and podcasts, especially when there's sort of the cream of the crop. It's like the top people, the biggest names. We're all consuming their books and their podcasts and their courses and whatever. And then the branding aspect of it, the branding as in like the colors and what it looks like and how people are dressing. And it feels to me a lot of times that like I can't tell the difference between anyone's account anymore. Like everybody just looks
Yeah.
exactly the same. They're saying the same thing. When you see something that works, success leaves clues. There's like an underlying psychological pull that we have that we're subconscious, where it's like, oh, if that's working for her, it must work for me. Let me just replicate it, but I'm going to tweak it a little. So it's not mine. So it's mine. I'm not copying it, but I'm going to tweak it a little. And when we're only tweaking it a little, everything tends to look the same. So how do you teach people to find that authenticity that you talked about before when they're not even sure what it is yet? Like, I don't even know what my voice
Yeah.
is yet because I'm just so consumed by everything else around me.
Yeah. It's hard and it takes time. And I think it's interesting that you're asking me this, because I am a mom of two young kids. I have a 3 and a 6-year-old. And I think the last 3 years of my life have really been figuring exactly that out. Like,
Yeah.
who am I really? Right. And it's so hard or so easy as we go through life, right? We talk about these things, not just on social media, but the things we're seeing in the media that we're consuming day to day, and like really being almost like indoctrinated to being a specific way.
Right.
And so the last 3 years for me have really been this journey. And like, what are the things that you care about, Laura? And what actually matters for you? And the thing that changed for me the most in my business was when I just started being myself. And I used to joke that, I can only be myself online because I'm just so tired as a mom of two. I
Mm,
don't have time to be anybody else. I'm
that's so
exhausted.
good.
But the truth is that it does take work and it does take time, right? It does take like radical self-acceptance to be able to show up online in a way that is authentically you. And maybe that's a way that's different
Yeah.
from somebody else. And for me, one of the things that I had to accept is that I'm not going to be for everybody. And when I first started showing up, certainly as, a social media marketing coach, and now I'm doing more sort of holistic marketing and business mentorship, I remember I would like always have my makeup done. And I think the first time I showed up in my stories, I was probably wearing a blazer, just trying to be like what I thought that it meant
Sure.
to be a business coach. But it was when I started to be like, you know what? I have wet hair today because I just showered, and I'm not wearing makeup because I just dropped off my kids. I squeezed in my workout and now I'm diving in. Like, I don't have time to make myself look Instagram perfect.
Sure.
That was actually when my business started to grow.
Yeah.
It was when people started to see themselves in me and have relatability to me and feel connected to me because, oh man, like she's in it with me. And when I accepted that was really important. And so when I'm working with my clients, it's like, who are you really underneath all this stuff? Like,
Yeah.
what is the stuff that you're doing that, isn't actually necessary? And what box are you trying to fit yourself in that you maybe don't need to be in? I
Yeah.
agree that success leaves clues, but I think at the end of the day, like, when we talk about marketing, the steps are the steps, right? Like A plus B does equal C when it comes to marketing. But when it comes to, you and your personal brand and your story and what matters to you, I think it really does come with tapping into what matters to you, but also like radical self-acceptance and just
Yeah.
being really comfortable with who it is that you are.
You also miss some of the magic moments, right? When you're so worried about like you get this really good burst of inspiration, you get this idea, you're out on a walk, you're at the gym, and you're like, okay, great. Even if I write it down, like I'll circle back to that in 3 hours after I go home and shower and put on my makeup. And like the spark is then lost as opposed to just
Yeah.
picking the phone up and saying what you want to say while you're getting the channel download from above, right? There's just
Yeah.
the magic kind of you miss that a little bit. What would you say though? So I agree with all of this. Trends.
Mm.
There's like such a fine line between following a trend, and I don't just mean using a trending audio, but it's like there are trends that come and there are trends that go,
Mm.
and whether that's like a new font or the seasonal Pantone colors, like there are trends every single year. So
Yeah.
what's the gray, like there's a gray area. What's the fine line between I'm jumping on board with the trends because I know they're working, success leads clues, and also like, but now maybe I'm not 100% being authentic to myself, not intentionally, but it's like I
Yeah.
kind of look like everybody else now.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think there's a lot of shiny objects when it
Mm.
comes to social media
Whatever do
and
you mean?
whatever. I think trends can be a shiny object, right? And when I think about my business, right, and social media, if you were to look at my Instagram account or my email list, they're not large.
Yeah.
However, my conversion rate is excellent. My ability to, I was with Chris Harder actually a couple weeks ago, and when I was telling him about, my conversion rate to my email list, he was like, "Whoa, you know
Yeah.
how to sell." I was like, "Yeah, because I build relationships with people, right?" And so for me, I will always choose, can I build a stronger relationship? The things that are not trendy, not sexy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the stuff that
Slow
is
play.
foundational, slow play business stuff over chasing the trend. Do
Yep.
I think that following trends might get you more followers or maybe a little more virality on social media? Like, yeah, maybe. But for me, I'm happy to play the long game because I intend to be an entrepreneur for the rest of my life. And if I were to spend all my time chasing trends, I would be very tired. I mean, I'm already very tired, but even more tired than I am. And it just isn't, it's not sustainable. I think if you see something that feels really good for you and you want to play there, like social media fundamentally is an experiment. So play.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the foundational marketing stuff, long play piece, it's going to be a little bit painful for you as
Yeah.
you chase things.
Well, I think the mindset piece is really big too. You're just saying like, if you want to play with that, right? And I'm thinking of Inventing Anna, when everyone was doing like Anna
Yeah.
Delvey posts, or like the Taylor Swift picture recently that came out
Yeah.
that of her at the football game. It's like, if you want to play with that and make a meme real quick with no attachment to thinking it's going to be the thing that blows your business up or
Yes.
make the sales, it's like, yeah, jump on the trend, whatever. It's fun. We all just did the AI yearbook photos, right? It's like, cool, jump on
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Let's shift gears for a second, because you've mentioned it a couple times, and obviously it's a huge part of your brand. Your podcast is literally about moms. What is it?
Yeah.
This mother means business.
This mother means business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Motherhood and business. So there's
Yeah.
something in the water this year. We have four pregnant or brand new moms, and as of the last month, in our elite mastermind. So clearly there's something in our water. But this is a conversation that has been floating around my ecosystem and my world for quite some time. I mean, I'm going to be 40 this year, so it's definitely been looming about. I want to talk all about it, because there is, on one side of things, for me at least, there's always been an underlying belief or story that how could I possibly do both? And I can only focus on one. And so it's been a choice. Okay, I'm going to focus on the business first, or okay, I'm going to go focus on starting the family first. And then I don't know what it will look like. And so maybe there's fear of being able to do both at the same time. And I oftentimes, most of my entrepreneurial friends, the close group of friends, do not have kids, or if they do, they're like 14 and they built the business first and then they had the kids, or I'm sorry, they had the kids first and then they built the business, or vice versa. But you're literally in it. You have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we worked together 3 years ago when you literally were having a baby. And you're one of the women that I look at and go, wow, okay, like if she can, I can. And it's so inspiring to see. And maybe the pendulum has had to swing a little bit, or there's different seasons in the business or different seasons in your, parenting. But I would love to just talk about all of it. Like, how hard is it really? What does it really look like? How much time are you spending in your business? Because I know you're also not a huge fan of people like claiming that they work an hour a day and make all this money, because you work
No.
hard. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for saying that. It just made my whole day.
Yeah. I mean it.
Yeah, it's a topic that I don't think when I originally started my online business was something that I was gonna, stand on the box and yell about. And it's now something that I very much stand on the box and yell about. But I owned a CrossFit gym. And when I had my daughter, who's now 6, when we had the CrossFit gym. So I was an entrepreneur for about a year before my daughter was born. And then in March of 2020, when the world shut down for 2 weeks out of an abundance of caution, I was, we all know how the rest of that story went. I was
Up
8
in
weeks
Canada.
pregnant up in Canada, 8 weeks pregnant with my now 3-year-old son. And so I was an entrepreneur first, and then had my daughter, and it
Wait,
was
quick
messy.
question. Did you have a
Yeah.
fear around that? Was that something that you were navigating?
I was so naive, honestly,
Okay.
Jess, that I was just like, cool, like, we'll just have a baby and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Nobody really had a conversation with me about it. I'll be
Okay.
honest. A lot of the narrative around motherhood was like, oh, congratulations, it's so exciting, like, enjoy every minute. Nobody actually said, hey, just so you know, I know your body's going through like some major physical transformation right now, but the emotional transformation that you're going to experience in the next year is going to be far greater than anything that you're going through physically. Oh, by the way, if you choose to breastfeed this child, it will be on you all the time, and you won't have the ability to just go and do whatever you want. Oh, by the way, the selfishness that you're experiencing right now, that's also going to be gone forever.
Yeah.
Also, plus,
Yeah.
nobody told me that.
Sure.
And so I went into it just being like, cool, we'll figure it out. That was like that is still kind of my motto. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll make it work. I'll figure it
Totally.
out. And so I figured it would just be fine. I don't recommend having a baby in a brick and mortar business. Like, I will not have a brick and mortar business with kids again, just because physically having to be somewhere and having staff and people relying on me, I don't recommend that. But I went through it and I survived, and I'm still here. So, I really do believe that, like, when you become a mother, your capacity just expands. You don't really have an option. Like, you have to figure it out, and you will. And so your capacity expands in like an entirely new way. But I think for me, when I think about, I had a baby when I owned a gym, and then I had my son during COVID when I was starting this other version of my business. I learned a lot from the first iteration of having my daughter into having my son. And there's a lot that I did differently. But I think the biggest shift for me, honestly, Jess, was just this idea of like what good motherhood actually means.
Oh,
And
let's talk
so
about
we
that.
have this. Yeah, we have this idea that like good mothering is martyring yourself. It is giving up everything for your kids. It's being with them 100% of the time and having to, give up all of your dreams, right? The thing that you're expressing fear around is that, well, I can't possibly be the entrepreneur that I am and enjoy life the way that I am and be a mom, but you can. And a lot of it just comes down to how you define good mothering. And for me, when I had my daughter, part of the reason why it was so difficult is because the definition of good motherhood that I subscribed to was what I witnessed my own mother do. And she was a stay-at-home mom, and she was always around, and she gave up everything. She martyred herself. She didn't do anything for herself. She made meals every day. And the thought that I had as a child growing up was like, yeah, I don't think I really want that. And so
Mm.
I didn't have kids. I was 29 by the time my daughter was born, but I didn't grow up even wanting kids.
Yeah.
It was just like, nah, that doesn't look like it's for me. And so when my daughter was born, I was still subscribing to that narrative of what motherhood was supposed to be. And it wasn't until, you know, everything kind of fell apart in my world where I was like, I need to redefine what this looks like. And for me now, being a good mom means I'm a good mom when I can have time away from my kids. One, my daughter's school age, so she's at school right now. My son's at preschool. We've had nannies in the past and we've had support. And I know that in order for me to be a really present and loving mom for my children, I have to be able to do other things.
Yeah.
And I have to be able to feed the other parts of me that are outside of just motherhood. And that's a big part of why I have these conversations and why this Mother Means Business exists is for me, it's really been this process of redefining what it actually even means to be a good mom.
Yeah.
And I believe that you can have it all, but you don't have to do it all.
Mm.
And really being able to find that balance is important. And I wish that someone had said to me, like, hey, if you want to hire a nanny, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Or, like you can actually do everything. You're just going to need some help. And that may mean hiring help. That may mean having family if you have that option. I didn't. And so it really is a balance. But for me, it's honestly just been this redefinition of what good motherhood is. And also having conversations about the fact that it is really hard sometimes.
Yeah. I would say equally too, it's a conversation of in itself of what does being a good business owner mean to you as well. It's like, what does being a
Mhm.
good entrepreneur mean? And how do you have to
Yeah.
show up for that? And I think we're on the same page with this because I believe I've heard you say this and I know I say it all the time. For the record, I am not comparing businesses to babies, but I
Yeah.
believe that your business is not your baby. And years ago, I
Yeah.
used to say that. I've seen Facebook posts of mine from 2012 where I literally put like, I'm working on my business, baby. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I don't want my business to be dependent on me. I don't want it to be my baby. I
Yeah.
am my own person. I have my own identity without my business. But I also know that not being a mother yet, the sole focus that, especially because Mike works in the business too, like we talk about the business a lot and
Yeah.
or the dog, right? It's like those are the two things that we do. We
He's
tend
a
to talk
very
about.
cute dog. He's a very
He's the
cute dog.
cutest. I know, right? He's sleeping right next to me. Um, we do talk about those things a lot. And I'm curious if for you becoming a mom and then a second time mom, if perspective had shifted or sort of purpose had shifted from grinding it out, CrossFit gym, making it work, brick and mortar, online business to like, oh, I have something else in my life now too that is maybe more important, maybe equally as
Totally.
important. Okay.
No, not equally as important. My
Okay.
business is very much not my baby.
Yeah.
And when I think about, my priorities in life, myself, my partner, my kids, and my business sort of being the main four, my business is last.
Yeah.
And it has to be.
Yeah.
And that's how I prefer it, and I'm an extremely ambitious woman. Like I have big, hairy, like delusional goals for my
Yeah.
for my business and what I want to create in the world and the kind of impact that I want. But at the end of the day, like my priority is happiness, is freedom, and having a positive experience for everyone in my household.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a massive perspective shift that comes when you have a child.
Yeah.
And I think that it is really important, regardless of whether you have children or not, right? Like my business has never been my baby, except for, like as into motherhood. But that first year, I really did try. And when I talked about like, don't recommend having a brick and mortar business, I went into it with the mindset of like, my business is the thing that matters because it was so much
Mm-hmm.
of my identity.
Yeah.
So much of my identity was wrapped up in what I did for a living.
Yeah.
And it happened when I went from corporate and went into the gym to owning a gym. I really struggled with, I would say to people, oh, I own a gym, but I used to, work at this luxury automotive company because that made me matter, right? That made
Right.
me important. And, recognizing that what I do for a living actually has nothing to do with my value.
Yeah.
And has been a really big perspective shift, but also having these children, right? Like at the end of the day, I will do anything. I will go mama bear for the for those kids. And I will drop everything in my business to be there for them. And so there is a massive perspective shift that happens. But, we talked about like building a machine earlier. I think that having a business that can be a machine for you when you become a mom will be such a gift.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Something that's running without you or only with a little bit of you, like a little bit of foot, a little gas on the pedal,
Yeah.
foot on the pedal. I don't know what I was saying, but
Foot on
yeah,
the pedal.
just
Yeah.
like a little bit, just a little tap, where you don't have to
Yeah.
be driving it and steering it and pushing and pedal down the whole entire time. And if you stop, it stops. Yeah, we definitely don't
Yeah.
want to be in that type of situation. We have a lot of moms that listen to the show. We have a lot of aspiring moms that listen to the show. We have a lot of dads that listen to the show and aspiring dads. If you had to say like, let's say three things,
Yeah.
three pieces of advice that you would give somebody who is either currently navigating parenthood with running a business or thinking about parenthood and running a business, what are three of the
Yeah.
biggest things, pieces of advice, shifts that you've made that have really helped you be able to do both?
Yeah. The first one is, I love this. Thank you for asking. The first one is manage your sources. And so I
Mm.
think that, when we think about what it's like to live, 24 hours even in a household with little kids, right? When we're taking advice about business, how we should live our lives, what we should be doing, I really encourage people to manage your sources of information or at least develop a really good filter. And
Mhm.
so what I mean by that is, I was recently in a room where, I was being told that I should, run calls in the evening. I don't do calls typically in the evening because I have little kids. And so the person that was giving me this advice doesn't have children. And the thought that I was having in my head was like, oh, do you want to come to my house at 8 p.m. and try to get the kids to bed and then hope that there's a call happen and that my daughter doesn't call 3 times. She has to pee. She's needs a snack. She's having a bad dream. She misses her bunny. Like that's not a thing that I can do. Right. And so I could receive that and be like, well, I have to take this call at 8 p.m. Well, no, I don't. So learning to either manage your sources or develop a good filter for that information and say, okay, I received that. What's the intention? And then can I either adapt that or change that and know that that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And know that because the information's coming to you generally in the business world isn't through that lens, right? It's
Right.
through this, like, you should do this, you should do that, and try this thing and that thing. But being able to develop a filter of what's for you is really important. The second piece would be to give yourself some grace because you need to.
Yeah.
One of the things that I catch myself doing is a lot of my peers, you mentioned this, don't have kids.
Mhm.
And so it's really easy for me to want to compare myself or get FOMO from my friends that are, on this trip and they're traveling this place and they're doing this experience and they're doing 17 connection calls in a day. And I'm like, whoa, like I have to manage my energy. I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
And so, I spend my day working and then I have to come home and be very extroverted to be present with my children. And so managing my own energy is really important. So it's very easy for me to want to compare myself to other people, but I really need to give myself some grace and remind myself, actually, that person doesn't have 2 children. That person has the freedom to do that. And that's
Right.
okay. And I love that for them. That's fantastic for them, but I'm not in that season. And so grace granted.
Yeah.
And the third piece would be to ask for help.
Mm.
And for me, it took me a really long time because I'm a very proud person
Yeah.
to admit that I needed the help, right? I was one of those like, no, I can do it. I've got this people. And I was too proud for a long time to say, you know what, I need help. And whether that's help in the business or help with the baby or just even help around the house or with the things that are showing up, right? Like to say, you know what, I need someone to come in and clean, or I need to hire a nanny to come in or a babysitter to hang out with my baby for 2 hours a day just so that I can take a proper shower or I can work on my business or I can have some routine.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really easy to want to feel like we can just do it all ourselves, but we really can't and shouldn't because that's
Yeah.
not enjoyable. And so asking for help was another big one that took me way too long to actually do.
Yeah. What is something I was going to say that we can circle back to that. I'm just super grateful for this conversation because if I'm being honest, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago. I did a sales call with a gal for one of our like elite masterminds and perfect fit. We jived. We'd been talking like for a year on social media, like built such a great relationship, adored her, loved her business, was so excited to work together. And at the very last minute, she actually pulled out and said, I hope you can understand this, but you're not a mom. And I am, and I want to work with someone who is a mom who kind of gets it. And of course, at first my ego was like so burned. It was just so painful because also like you don't know someone's journey behind the scenes, right? So it was just kind of like, ooh, that really stung for me. Like, but also, you're right. I'm not. And so like that's interesting, right? To want to have a mentor. It's like, yeah, I want to work with mentors who have similar businesses to what I want to build. It wouldn't make sense for me to be in something completely opposite unless I just want to see the other side of things, right? So it was just kind of this moment where I was a little bit shaken at first and almost hurt, but then it had nothing to do with me, and it totally had everything to do with her and what she needed and what she felt was important for the source that you, like you said, the source and the filter in which she was looking through. And now I can look at it and go, wow, it's such an admirable thing that she had said that. And I think it's so important to share all that because there's so many things going on. I mentioned before, we have a bunch of gals who just had babies in our mastermind, and they're on Zoom calls and they're breastfeeding on the calls. And it's just like, it's so cool to see the evidence of what is possible, right? When you don't know what it could be true in your life and you can see other people doing it.
I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited about, the number of women who are choosing entrepreneurship and, or motherhood and, right. And, I do a community connection call every Tuesday. It's every other Tuesday. It's a free call. And a lot of moms come on that call, and those calls are chaos. Okay. The level of chaos that's going on in the background. But what excites me is that what that's going to do for their children.
Yeah.
And specifically their daughters. I'm the first entrepreneur in my family. I didn't know that entrepreneurship like this was an option. I thought that to become an entrepreneur, I needed like venture capital and somebody to give me $100 million, and I needed to be the next Spanx, like that was what entrepreneurship was to me. It wasn't, oh, I can start an online business and I can support people all around the world and, make multi-six figures from my phone or that wasn't something that I knew was an option.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool that this number of mothers are creating that for their own kids. If I had seen that, I just wonder, I'm so grateful for my own journey. And so it's very easy to look back and, wonder, but I'm excited to see what my daughter creates in the world, knowing that there are all of these options, or my son even, right. And for our own kids to know, motherhood doesn't have to look like this very one-dimensional box. Now, if that's what you want for yourself, that's fantastic.
Right.
If you want to be if you want motherhood to be your one and only label, then that's beautiful. That's just not for me.
Yeah.
I want motherhood or entrepreneurship right? However you want to look at it. I think about, if my life was a pie, motherhood is a slice of it. It is not all of it. And I love it. I love getting on calls, and sometimes still people will apologize. I'm so sorry for this chaos. No, please bring your chaos. I'm here for it. This is nothing is perfect. And I think, I love that you share that story of that woman, because I think, that is a big piece of it.
Yeah.
Right. And there is a certain level of understanding. And certainly before I had kids, I would have been the exact same. Right? To be like, oh, well, what do you mean? Jess, you're an incredible, extremely knowledgeable. You've done all of the things. You're an incredible coach. You're incredible at what you do. But there's that little piece, right? And if I certainly before I had kids, I would have been the exact same. And now that you live it, there's a piece of it that you really can't understand until you live it.
Yeah.
Because there is, I talked about that emotional piece. There is a level of understanding there, which is part of why, I'm so grateful for the community that I've built over on the podcast and over in my world, because it is there is a true holding of hands rather than this sort of competitiveness and this deep understanding of man, this is hard.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, but it is hard.
Yeah.
And so I love that.
Yeah. And I love the community that you've built. I want to talk about that. For the person listening who has no interest in being a parent or is not one right now, or it feels like that's eons away, there is still stuff that you can be taking from this conversation. So I hope that you're taking it in and take what you need and leave the rest. But things that we're talking about doesn't just have to do with parenting. The community that you built is incredible. You just said every other Tuesday you do a free community networking call. What else do you have going on? Pimp yourself out. Where can people find you? How can they work with you? Tell us about your podcast. Go for it.
Yeah. So my podcast is called This Mother Means Business. We release an episode every Thursday, but I think by the time this episode launches, we're actually going to be Monday and Thursday. So things are heating up over on the podcast. Lots of episodes. Yeah. We have some really incredible guests. I do some solo episodes, or I'll bring on incredible mothers to either share their own story of motherhood and entrepreneurship, or to come on and teach us some of their incredible subject matter expertise. So if you're an entrepreneurial mother thinking about becoming one, it's a great place for conversation. I do host a community connection call every other Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And Jess, I'll make sure that I send you the link. So if anybody that is interested in joining that, you want to come hang out, get some business help, be part of the community. A lot of the women in that community have actually renamed it our biweekly hug, because we just pour into each other and give each other some love, which I know it is really cute. I love it. And then in the new year, I'm going to be starting the third round of my Ambition Mastermind, which is a mastermind for entrepreneurial mothers who are just really looking to be part of community and support. So if you're in a place where you're looking to hit your first 6 figures, ready to go beyond 6 figures, that is the community for you. And so if anything that I've said resonated with you today and you want to reach out and have that conversation, I would be more than happy to do so. And Instagram DMs is probably the easiest place to do that. That's where I hang out. So feel free to send me a DM and I'd love to chat with you about Ambition.
It's Laura Sinclair on Instagram.
Yes, at It's Laura Sinclair on Instagram.
Okay,
that's right.
Perfect. You good for a couple rapid fire?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. When the kids are finally down or they're out of the house, what's a guilty pleasure?
Oh gosh, probably just Netflix and chill. I love football actually. So I will just like put on football and eat some chips.
Who's your team?
The Chicago Bears. They're terrible, but it's fine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I used to play flag football.
Did you?
I used to play flag football.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I played flag football and my coaches called me Urlacher. So that's who was like a linebacker for the Chicago Bears. So telling you a little too much on that rapid fire there. But yeah, that's how I became a Bears fan.
Okay, that makes sense. When you're Netflixing, what are you binging?
Ooh, I like any like documentaries, any and all documentaries. I just watched the one on the painkiller one, which was really painful to watch, but any and all documentaries. That's what I'm not a reality TV gal, but hit me with the documentaries. Give me the facts.
Same. I love docuseries and documentaries. If you were to give a TED talk on something that you are not known for, what would it be?
Not known for? That's a tough question. I would probably give a TED talk on something to do with athleticism, like something to do with like postpartum fitness or something like that, because that was where I used to play.
Yeah, cool. What's something that people get wrong about you?
Ooh. What if it's something that people get wrong about me? I am a lot more sarcastic than I think sometimes people think.
Yeah, I'll take it. $50,000 question. If we were to cut you a check for $50,000 and you had to use it in or on your business tomorrow, you could split it up or use it in one lump sum. How would you invest it?
Jess, these are hard questions. I would $50,000. I would probably invest to go to like every event that I could go to where my ideal client hangs out.
Cool. I love it.
Is that a fair, do I need to
Sure.
elaborate?
What do you mean? There's no good or bad. It's perfect.
It would be like joining masterminds. It would be like just going where my ideal client is right now. I would get on planes. That's what I would do. I would spend the next year going to every single event, because I do think, we talked about relationships. I think that they're like, that is better marketing than people usually consider.
Yeah. I love it. Last question. As you know, we named the company Digital Business Evolution because we believe that we are always evolving and growing. And as we do, so does our business. What is your next personal or business evolution?
Ooh, 2023 for me was the year of It's Laura Sinclair, and going into shifting away from a more generic social media name into Laura Sinclair. And I think 2024 is going to be the year of This Mother Means Business. So I've got a whole bunch of exciting things coming for that chapter. Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited. I want to hear more about this off air. Yeah. All right, my friends. Well, I appreciate you so much. I feel like we could just keep going and going, but I want to be mindful of your time. If you love this episode and you found something out of it valuable, or you just want to connect with Laura and I, definitely take a screenshot, share it on social media, tag It's Laura Sinclair, and I am Jessica DeRose. Let us know what your favorite takeaway was, or just share it so that we could DM you and say thank you for listening. And Laura, until next time, my dear, thank you so much for being here. I adore you.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah. All right, friends. Cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.